a very good afternoon to everyone. I welcome you today to this very thought-provoking and intuitive webinar on Islamic banking landscape in Iran, organized by privileged Al-Sadiq Institute of Islamic Banking, Finance, and Takaful. I am Madiha Rubab, banker by profession and a perpetual learner. I am honored to be part of the management committee of Al-Sadiq. I have the honor today to moderate this enlightening session. Islamic banking has been, remarkable, has seen a remarkable growth globally, reflecting our core principles of justice, fairness, and equality. By adhering to Sharia principles, Islamic banks do avoid interest-based transactions and rather focus primarily on profit sharing and risk sharing models. Just for record purposes, as of 2023, the global Islamic finance market value stands at 3 trillion, underscoring its significant impact and potential in the global financial market. Today, we are truly honored to have with us Dr. Hossein Meisamy, a renowned expert in Islamic banking and finance. Now, I have to read through his accolades and all his credentials. Dr. Meisamy currently holds the esteemed position of Director of Islamic Banking Department and Secretariat of the Shariah Council at the Central Bank of Iran. Additionally, he serves as an assistant professor at the Monetary and Banking Research Institute. Dr. Meisamy has a very impressive background. Mashallah, he holds a Ph.D. in economics from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam University. His contributions to the field include multiple published articles and research papers, as well as keynote addresses and expert sessions. His expertise and insights are highly sought after in the Islamic banking and finance domain. And one humble request before I virtually hand over the mic to Dr. Meisamy. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type in the QA session and we'll respond to them. We'll try to respond to them in the Q&A session. And this session is recorded and it will be shared shortly on Al-Sadiq's social media. Without further ado, I am pleased to hand over the virtual microphone to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Hossein Meisamy. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sister Robab, for your kind speech. Thank you very much. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. First of all, I want to thank Al-Sadiq Institute of Islamic Banking, Finance and Takaful for their kind endeavor in the field of Islamic banking and to communicate and make this session possible. Thank you, Brother Masar Abbas and their colleagues for these efforts. In addition, at the beginning, I want to express my condolences and sympathy with the people of Palestine who are in a severe situation, and may Allah helps them in the war with Israel, and may Allah saves them. So my presentation is about Islamic banking landscape and situation in Islamic banking of Iran, system issues and challenges. As I was introduced, I am Hossein Meisamy, Director of Islamic Banking Department and Secretariat of Iranian Sharia Council at the Central Bank of Iran. So, Brother Abbas, how can I move on to the next slide? Thank you. The next one, please. Next one, please. Well, as you know, Islamic Republic of Iran is one of the leading pioneers in the field of Islamic banking and finance. Iran has started doing Sharia compliant banking much sooner than many other countries, right? And because of that, the story of Islamic banking in Iran is very worthy and important for other countries. We have some important opportunities. We have some special challenges. All of these make the case of Iran very special in the field of Islamic banking and finance business. So the start of Islamic banking in Iran relates to ratification of Riba-Free Banking Act, RFBA, which was passed in 1983 by the Iranian parliament. And this law is one of the pillars or fundamental moves in the development of Islamic banking in Iran. After this law was passed, all the system converted into Islamic system. From that time on, which is more than 4 decades, right? All the banks in the Iranian system are supposed to be Islamic and work according to Sharia rules. However, due to lack of constructive interaction with other countries, mostly because of unfair US sanctions, as you know, Iran historically has been under severe US sanctions, and because of that, we have little interaction with other countries. And that's why the academic community of Islamic banking internationally know very little about the Iranian experience, right? So the important point here that I want to emphasize is the role of this law, Riba-Free Banking Act, which changed the system 100% into Islamic banking system. Next slide, please. Well, after the Iranian Revolution, 1979, the Islamic Republic of Iran established, and based off Constitution, Islam and Sharia, Article number 4 of Iranian Constitution, Islam or Sharia is the main source of the rules and circulars and all the regulations. It means that all the laws and regulations in the Iranian banking system, economic system, financial system are supposed to be Sharia compliant based on Article 4 of the Constitution, right? So the Iranian Constitution supports Islamic banking, and this is a very important movement that we should pay attention to, considering the Iranian experience. Considering this, the Islamic banking system in Iran is conducted in a nationwide scope. It is not a dual banking system. It means that unlike other Islamic countries, most of other Islamic countries, like, for example, Pakistan, now speaking, Bahrain or Saudi Arabia, or other countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, or other countries, other Islamic countries who have Islamic banking in a dual system. In Iran, we have a nationwide Islamic banking system. It means that 100% Islamic banking system, or it is supposed that all the system or 100% of the system be Sharia compliant. Considering this, at the time of my presentation, 20,000 Islamic branches across the country with more than 200,000 Islamic bankers or employees are at place, are working. So it means that there are lots of Islamic banking branches, lots of Islamic bankers working in the system, because all the system is supposed to be Sharia compliant, and it is important considering the Iranian experience. Please go on to the next page. Well, my on the history of Islamic banking in Iran, the act, as I told you, which works as a cornerstone of Islamic banking development in Iran. After that, opportunities and challenges. After that, comparing the Iranian Islamic banking system with other countries, and the final part, conclusion, and open to questions. Please, dear sister, please go on to the next page, which means page 6, please. Is it changing? It is. I don't see the change. If you please go to slide number 6, please. Well, considering the history, I want to give you a nutshell or a very short story of Islamic banking in Iran. At the time of revolution, all the system get nationalized. It means that all the private banks at the time of revolution converted into national banks. Because of the revolution and the instability that happened to them, the government decided to announce all the banks to nationalized or governmental banks and institutions. There are some other developments considering the history of Iran that I want to move on. They are not important that much, but we had some difficult times in the after the revolution, because of the war that we had, and other challenges because of at that time happened to the banking system. Actually, the ratification of Islamic Banking Act, as I told you, happened in 1983. Based of this act, the most important goal of the Islamic banking system is to consider Sharia rules, justice, and other important goals. For example, preserving the value of money, or things like that. Please go on to slide number 7. Thank you. That's correct. So in the Riba-Free Banking Act, RFBA, we have some codes which are important, as I told you, justice, doing Shariah, preserving the money value, and things like that. And as I told you, private banks were converted into nationalized bank at 1979, but after almost 1 decade, at 2000, a new act was passed that this new act gave them permission to work, or it means that again the work of or establishment of private banks in Iran was possible at that time. It means that from 1979 up to 2000, all the banks were supposed to be nationalized. But after that, the new law passed or ratified in which it was permitted that private banks be in place. Now, at the time of speaking, we have private banks and nationalized banks in Iran working simultaneously, right? Please go on to the next slide, slide number 9. Well, there are some important issues here. For example, the ownership structure and administration status of different groups of banks are important issues that we have in Iran. Some banks are privatized banks, but in fact, governments have some role or some word in them, and in one way or the other controls them. It is important in understanding the experience of Iranian Islamic banking system. In addition, considering the law itself, which means that Riba-Free Banking Act law, it has 4 parts, slide number 11. These parts are objectives and duties of Islamic banking system, techniques of mobilizing financial resources, banking facilities, central banking, and monetary policy. These 4 parts are the main parts of the Riba-Free Banking Act 1983. The important point here is that objective and duties, mobilization of financial resources, banking facilities, central banking are the only issues discussed in this law, right? In this law. But other important issues, for example, macroprudential policies, microprudential policies, soundness and stability of the system, and things like that are not included in the Riba-Free Banking Act, because at that time, Islamic banking doctrine was not that much developed, considering the nowadays theoretical backgrounds and practical issues, which are very developed. And it is important that we pay attention to this note that this law at the time of ratification was a very good law, but at the time it is not. But Central Bank of Iran now, in cooperation with the Iranian Parliament, are on the way to revise this law, right? And it is important, and I will tell you in the next part. To put it in a nutshell, to summarize, the law of Riba-Free Banking Act includes 4 parts, as I told you. In the next slide, objectives of the law are discussed. As you see, different issues are considered as the objectives of Iranian Riba-Free Banking Act, right? For example, I'm not going to review all of them, but one of them for you According to Article 1 of the RFPA, objectives of the banking system are itemized as follows. Establishment of a monetary and credit system based on rightness and justice as outlined by Islamic jurisprudence for the purpose of regulating sound circulation of the money and credit to enhance the health and growth of the country's economy. This is the first and the most important point in the objectives mentioned in the law. In addition, there are other issues, for example, supporting the goals of governments, creation of necessary facilities to extend to the Ghazal Hassan and cooperation parts, and so on and so forth. Let's go to the next slide, duties. In duties also, there are some important issues, as you can see in this slide. Issuance of notes and coins, regulating, controlling, and guidance of circulation of money and credit, and things like that. At the next slide, we go over the resource mobilization, which are the most important techniques of Iranian Islamic banks to get money from the depositors, right? In Iran, we use two techniques, right? We have Qarz al-Hassan deposits and Wakala deposits. When we want to get money from the depositors in demand deposit or saving account, and we don't want to give them money to pay them profit, we make use of Qarz al-Hassan, which is emphasized in this part of the law. And when we want to make use of term deposits or investment accounts and give profit to depositors, we make use of Wakala contract. So in Iran, there are two ways, two Shariah rules or contract to get money from depositors, Qarz al-Hassan and Wakala. It is different from other countries, for example, that use Muzaraba or Vadia or things like that. In Iran, only Qarz al-Hassan and Wakala contracts are used. So after resource mobilization, at the next slide, we go to resource mobilization. How to allocate money to people, to the people who are in need, who are in shortage of money, right? We call them facilities. In the Iranian Banking Act, there are different ways, different Islamic ways, like musharaka, like muzaraba, muzara'a, musaqat, murabaha, installment sale, salam or salaf. In the allocation of facilities, slide number 16, we in Iran make use of different ways and modes that I told you: musharaka, muzaraba, installment sale, salam or salaf, ijara, bay'ud-dain, and things like that. Well, in Iran, we have two special operational models for musharaka, which is called civil musharaka or civil musharaka or law-based. I can translate musharaka, right? They are special operational models of musharaka, which is a special case for Iran. In other countries, we have musharaka contracts, but in Iran, we have two different ways. Musharaka, civil musharaka relates to the relation of bank of a special person or the one who is in need of money, right? And the other one for the direct, it is actually a kind of direct investment, right? It is called musharaka, but in practice, bank enters in a kind of investment and does the musharaka directly. So these are two. These are related mobilization of funds, ways or modes used in the Iranian system. In the next slide, which is the third part of my presentation, I go through opportunities of the Islamic banking system in Iran, right? After 4 decades of experience, we have come up with some opportunities. These opportunities are very important in my view. And this includes the population first and the most, in my view. 95% of the populations, Iranian population, are Muslims. It is important. In some other countries, it is not the case. For example, 50% of population are Muslims, the other are non-Muslims. But in Iran, we have a very good chance. Most of this, our population are Muslims. Two independent acts with numerous capacities. As I told you, in Iran, we have a special act for Islamic banking. It is important. Implementing the Islamic banking in nationwide system, it is also important. We are doing Islamic banking nationwide and in all the system with no room for dual banking system or conventional banking. As I told you, 4 decades of experience is a very important issue. It is a long-lasting experience. It is important for us to pay attention to. The existence of Sharia Council at the Central Bank of Iran. We have a high-level Sharia Council at the CBI, Central Bank of Iran. And we have started Sharia supervision in each banking system. Now, at the time, the Iranian Sharia board has one Sharia supervisor at each Islamic banks, right? It is not like other countries that all Islamic banks have their own Sharia council, right? In Iran, we have one Sharia council at the Iranian Central Bank, and at each bank, we have one Sharia supervisor, right? He or she is a qualified person that his quality and ability is granted by the Sharia Council. So it is important that consider Sharia supervision in the Iranian system, and it is one of our special opportunities in my view. There are also some challenges that are important. I distinguished between theoretical challenges and practical challenges. There are some theoretical challenges that I will tell you, and there are some practical challenges that I will go over them very shortly because of the time, I believe. Considering theoretical challenges, the exact meaning of riba is a challenge, considering the new modern economy. the definition and interpretation of riba in a modern way, in a modern view, in a modern economic system is important that we should pay attention to. The relation between riba and interest is also important for us. As you know, we have different interest rates: money market interest rates, short-term interest rate, capital market interest rate, insurance interest rate, right? The relation between different kinds of riba, which is riba al-gharz, riba al-muamali, riba al-dain, with the different groups of interest rates are important. We should pay attention to. The case of money creation was also important. We have inside money creation and outside money creation. Outside money creation is done by a central bank, and inside money creation happens through a money multiplier in the banking system. These are important issues that should be discussed at their own place. It is not possible for me to discuss all of them now at the time, so I go over them very shortly. The role of money in the new monetary system is also important. We should pay attention to that. How money works in the new modern economy, in the new monetary system, it is important. It is a new challenge. At the next slide, I go very shortly over the practical challenge that we have in Iran. A governmental view toward Islamic banking is important. Our Islamic banking system is top-down system, right? It had started from a governmental initiatives. It is not a private sector initiatives. It is important, as we discussed in the history of Islamic banking. It was the case, brothers and sisters. Our system is a little bit different from what is in place in Persian Gulf countries, right? For example, Kuwait or United Arab Emirates or so on and so forth, which are some Islamic banks in place that are somehow private or related to royal families or things like that. In Iran, the case is a governmental initiatives in the field of Islamic banking. Well, other issue is that competition between Islamic banks is very little because we have no conventional banks. So Islamic banks in Iran do not have rivals or competitors to compete with them. It is important. Lack of legitimate solution for delayed payments. It is a big challenge in Iran, and big jurisprudential or fiqhi challenge. We do not have a special way for doing with delayed payment. It is a challenge. Rolling over or renewing or rescheduling a loan or facility is a real need in the system, but we don't have Sharia compliant ways and modes to answer to this need. The issue of collateral in musharaka contracts is important. In Iran, we make use of collateral even in musharaka contracts. In some views, it is not Sharia compliant, but other muftis or jurists believe that it is Sharia compliant. However, it is an important issue. It is an important issue that we should work on. Accrual accounting, if it is Sharia compliant, it is important to work on. Not revising the RFBA Riba Free Banking Act, as you know, as I told you, it is more than 4 decades that the law is not revised, right? And because of that, it is a big challenge. But the good news is that in the Iranian parliament, I told you that there are some efforts to revise this law. At the time, the Iranian Central Banking Act, new Iranian Central Banking Act, ratified 3 months ago in the Iranian parliament and is now in place in the central bank. This new law is a very good law. It has very potentials, and I hope that the system will change toward better situation after the implementation of this law. But in future, inshallah, Riba-Free Banking Act will also be revised, and this will help the Iranian banking system a lot. To hurry up, brothers and sisters, neither AOP nor IFSP standards are implemented in the Iranian banking system. We implement our own standards, but we are on the way to cooperate with the AOP, and my brothers and sisters in Al-Sadiq Institute are helping the Central Bank of Iran in this regard to enhance our relationship between Iran and the AOP. But now our relations are very narrow, not satisfactory. Insufficient Sharia supervision, in our view, in my view, little education and research. The system is 100% Islamic. This needs lots of education and research, but in my view, the current status quo is not satisfactory. There are some other issues that I don't want. My last part of presentation, which is slide number 21, please. Comparing the Iranian Islamic banking system with other countries. Brothers and sisters, there are lots of things to talk about the Iranian system because our system is a bit complicated. And I told you, because of sanctions, there are little English literature about the Iranian system, so that the awareness of Iranian system is very little internationally. In comparison between Iranian Islamic banking system and other Islamic banking countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, I told you that the Iranian model is based on Imamiyya jurisprudence, right? Most of our population are Shia Muslims, right? Makatib al-Khamsa. Shia is one of these schools of thought. And system is based on our school of thought, which is Imamiyya jurisprudence. It is different. There are some differences, almost 10 to 20% in my view. 80% between the schools, in my view, are 80% are almost equal, but there are 10 to 20% differences between Imamiyya fiqh and other schools of thoughts, right? Like Hanafi or Hanbali or Maliki. Well, and Shafi'i. The Iranian scheme dominates the entire country with no room for conventional banking. I told you, in most Islamic countries, however, Islamic banks and conventional banks compete with each other, right? And work side by side. It is important considering competition. While Vakala is used, next slide please. Vakala is used in mobilization of funds. In other countries, most of them use Mudaraba or things like that. But we use the Vakala. Bay-Odain, debt sale, is in practice in Iran. It is Sharia compliant based of our jurisprudence, but there are some schools that do not accept debt sale. Well, we have one single Sharia board in central bank in Iran, but in other Islamic countries, each Islamic bank has one Sharia supervision, Sharia committee, or things like that. This is the difference between Sharia supervision system of Iran and other countries. Well, another issue, the issue of zakat. There are some there are Islamic banks in some countries like Pakistan pay zakat at some times, for example, first of Ramadan, right? Islamic banks pay zakat, but in Iran it is not the case. It is not in practice. I told you that the issue of delayed payment, most of Islamic banks pay the delayed payment to pay to charitable activities, but in Iran it is not the case. And in my view, it is an important challenge. We have lots of Qazul Hassan funds in Iran, private Qazul Hassan funds, in my view, 6,000 funds, right? They are in practice to help the needy people. Sukuk is used for monetary policy. In most Islamic countries, Sukuk is used for financing purposes, not for monetary policy. But in Iran, because all the system is Islamic, right? The central bank itself issues a kind of sukuk. For example, 2 months ago, the central bank of Iran issued Vadia sukuk to conduct a kind of monetary policy or open market operation that I am sure you are all familiar with this issue. Islamic accounting and auditing standards are challenged in the Iranian system. We are very weak at standardizing Islamic banking in our country. Now, in the Secretariat of Sharia Council of CBI, Central Bank of Iran, we are trying our best to go toward making the Islamic banking standardized, but there are a big way ahead. There are lots left behind. Now, now I come to conclusion. My conclusion is that we need constructive cooperation with other pioneer countries like Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia. We should learn a lot from other Islamic countries. I believe, in my view, that Iran, the Iranian experience, has some important issues that other countries that may make use of it. For example, the case of Pakistan, as you know, I'm sure you all aware that there is an important fatwa, vital fatwa by the Supreme Court of Pakistan that the system should go toward Islamic banking, right? By the end of, if I'm not mistaken, 2027. So it is important for the Pakistan Central Bank to evaluate the Iranian experience regarding conducting Islamic banking in a nationwide system. It is important. I believe that this constructive cooperation will help both sides, and bilaterally would be useful. We are very open at the Central Bank of Iran for increasing the relation and cooperating with our brother countries, brother Islamic countries. We have no limit, or we consider no limit for ourselves. So, last not the least, the Iranian banking system. I told you this point that it is important for the Iranian system to make use of other countries' experiences to solve the problems that I told you. There are some questions, open questions at the final, at the next slide, which is my final slide. These questions are open questions in experience. Again, I want to thank my special thanks may go to the Islamic banking of all making them.
Thank you, sir, for this enlightening discussion. The floor is now open for questions. We have many questions. In fact, I have been jotting down those questions. Do I read it for you, sir?
Yes, I am ready, but I want you to a bit speak up, and everyone who is going to ask questions, please speak up so that I can hear you in a better way, because my connection is a bit weak. Thank you.
Okay. Kindly unmute the participants, please. So we have a question from Mr. Zafar Raza. He is inquiring, what are the requirements of Sharia counsel deputed in banks in Iran?
Thank you very much. It is a good question. I told you in Iran, we have one Sharia council at the CBI, Central Bank of Iran, right? But at each bank, we don't have Sharia council, right? What we have is a Sharia supervisor, one person in charge, right? We have a Sharia council at central bank and one person at each bank, right? These guys, who are almost 30 guys, are related to the Secretariat of Sharia Council that I am in charge of, right? So in Iran, we don't have, the case is different from Pakistan, like Nizam Bank of Pakistan, which has a very special Sharia Council, right? In Iran, we have one person as Sharia supervisor or advisor at each bank. It is the person who is related to central bank and Sharia council. This is the way we conducted Sharia supervision in the Iranian banking system.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, sure.
My dear brother Hussein, this is Nikhat from State Bank of Pakistan, and I would like to thank Al-Sadiq Institute for inviting you and giving us a chance to listen to you and learn a lot about Iranian system. And I really thankful to all the people who are joining, and even Dr. Hussein, who is managing despite all the technical difficulties. Since we at State Bank have made a couple of presentations with respect to Iranian system, so I feel this initiative by Al-Sadiq Institute to make it more other people could attend, that's a really, really good initiative. So heads off to Al-Sadiq Institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Niqat. You are so kind always from the meeting we had in Kuala Lumpur and Pakistan and now here. Thank you very much for your all help and support.
Thank you, ma'am, for your
Thank you,
kind
ma'am,
words.
for joining us.
Oh, okay. And then we have our next question, that is, if you promise a fixed return on investment deposit, how it is that this is not riba?
Again, please, can you repeat, please?
This is a question from ZD. If you promise a fixed return on investment deposit, how is it that this is not riba?
Thank you very much for this good question. In my view, it is a fundamental question. Well, how we pay fixed return profit to depositors, which is term deposit, you mean, or vekala deposits, and it is not riba. Actually, we have a term in Iran which is called alal hisab profit, right, or an account profit. It means that when at the first day that the depositor refers to the bank, the bank announces that, look, we, based on a kind of historical data, try our best to give you, for example, 20% as profit, right? But it is alal hisab, or right? It is not predetermined 100%. We go on after 1 year, again, we evaluate, and at that time, we come up with actual profit, which might be more or less considering the alal hisab or the initial rate, right? It is a kind of technique to smooth the differences between actual rate and the expected rate. In other Islamic countries, usually profit equalizing reserves, that I'm sure you are all familiarized with that, is used. It is another technique. But in Iran, we make use of alal hisab content. It is that I told you, it is a technique. It doesn't mean that the first rate is 100% guaranteed. We have some banks that after 1 year, after financial year is passed, announce that, look, at the first day, we told you that you are granted 18%, but now we had a very good job and our asset pool made, for example, 25%. So the difference between 18 and 25, which is 7%, will be given to you, right? So in the Sharia Council of Central Bank, we are going to study other ways, other techniques of smoothing the profit rate situation, right, or changes. But at the time, the technique which is used is alal hisab profit. That's all.
Moving on to the next question. Next question, and I believe it's a good question from Ms. Rabia Hassan. Thank you, Rabia, for such an excellent question. She's asking, is there a specific reason for not using mudaraba for saving deposits, given that it's the major mode used in Pakistan for deposit products?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. Actually, the reason we are not using muzaraba that much and we are focusing on Vakala in Iran is that we have a fiqh challenge, right? In Imamiya fiqh, which is prevailing in the Iranian system, right? Muzaraba is a limited contract. It is limited to trade only. And most of the muftis in the Iranian system believe that muzaraba is not, do not have that much potential to be used in other fields or things like that, right? Only in tajarat, buying and selling. Muzaraba is a limited contract in Imamiya fiqh. That's why we are not using muzaraba that much. But in my view, it is not a big issue. We can use other techniques. None of these contracts, in my view, are not holy by themselves. We should make the best one. As Allah said, Allahul bay, it means that different kinds of bay. For example, murabaha, installment sale, All of them are families of pain. We are not emphasizing in one contract. However, as I told you, the reason is the jurisprudential challenge or limit that we have in Imamiyya fiqh. Muzaraba is limited to trade, it is not usable in other fields. That's it.
Moving on to my last question, sir. However, we have numerous questions, but we are running short of time. So my last question is from Muhammad Abbas. How Qaradul Hasna deposit drive in saving accounts in Iran? Can you please elaborate very quickly?
Can you please repeat which kind of account?
Qaradul Hasna deposit.
So what is the question? How they work?
Yes, how they work in Iran. Please elaborate.
Yeah, we have two kinds of Qarzul Hasan contracts in Iran. One of them is current account Qarzul Hasan, right? Another one, saving account Qarzul Hasan. In the current account Qarzul Hasan, the depositor comes to the bank, gives money to the bank as Qarzul Hasan, and the bank do not give anything as profit to him, but gives them some services. For example, checks. For example, ATM cards or things like that, but not profit. This is current account Qarzul Hasan. Another one, saving account Qarzul Hasan, in which the customer or depositor puts their money in the bank, right? And the bank do not pay any profit to them. These accounts are for those guys who do not want to use checks, and it is called the kind of saving account. Current account and saving account in Iran do not have any profit on them. That is the way it is done in the Iranian system.
Now, a final question from me.
Okay, go on.
Do Iran has credit card system, and if they have, then on which model it is working? Like the Tawarruk and other models are there.
Pardon, please repeat which.
Do Iran has credit cards? Irani banks have credit cards?
Credit card, yeah.
And model they are
Actually,
working on?
understood, granted. Well, in Iran, in recent years, we have come up with special credit cards. These special Islamic credit cards are based on Murabaha contract. It is not based on Tawarruk. Tawarruk is not accepted in the based on Imamiyya fiqh. Some models of a Tawarruk, I mean, not all of them, but in Iran, Murabaha credit card, right, is accepted and in place. Now it is in place in the Iranian system. We use Murabaha as a contract for coming up with Islamic credit cards.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Meisamy, for your very insightful presentation. Your discussion has definitely provided us with deeper understanding of significant developments and unique aspects of Islamic banking in Iran. I would like to extend our gratitude to all our participants, especially Al-Sadiq team for organizing this webinar. Dr. Abdul Hadi Saab, Mr. Hussain Hassan Ali, Wajihuddin Saab, Faisal, Rabia, Irfan, and all my esteemed participants for joining us. Your engagement and your questions have really made this really, really enlightening. Thank you to all, and hopefully we'll have next session like this in future. Thank you.
Maulana Mazhar would like to.
Yes, and first of all, I would like to thank to Dr. Meisamy and um, Sayyida Madiha Rabab as well for moderating this important session. In last, as you know, that we had many questions, but due to the shortage of time, we could not respond. So, if anyone who wants to ask his question, or if he needs any clarification, he can contact Al Sadiq Institute, generally and specifically to me, so we can answer all these questions as well after the session, inshallah. Just to say this, thank you so
Inshallah.
much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Hussain,
very much,
and all the
brother.
participants.
Thank you very much. I would be ready for other questions that will be sent to Brother Masar Abbas. No problem.
Thank you so much for your kindness.
Thank you, brother. You are so kind.